Welcome to Distantly Social with Ed Goyette, a hopefully short lived series of interesting conversations with people from all over the world.
My guest today, I'm super excited to have her on. She is a life coach, she's a mom of four, and she's a singer songwriter who produced her own album. She's going to talk to you today about overcoming fear, self care, and give us some insight behind the music. Welcome, please, my good friend, Julie Burningham. Hey, Julie.
Hi, nice to be here. Thanks so
So
much for
glad to
having
have you.
me. Thank
So,
you.
talk to us here. The there is so much fear in the world right now around so many different things. I mean, you could just pick a category in this fear around it. And you've come up with some great strategies around overcoming fear and dealing with fear. And I'm super excited to hear what those are.
Yeah, so one of the things that I do personally is I have a morning routine that is huge for me. It keeps my mindset in a really good place. It's where I can be positive. I can look forward to my day, and so my biggest thing is I call it D3. It's mind, body, and spirit. And so I will do something for my mind. I will learn something new. It could be a book. It could be I love uh, Creative Live. It's a platform I love to use, where I'm learning. I'm just gaining some sort of skill that is filling my mind. And then the next one is my body. I always do something for my body, whether that's CrossFit, I'll do yoga, or I will go up in the mountains and go for a hike. We live really close to a lot of beautiful mountains in Utah. And so it just fills my soul to see beauty and to look around and see the mountains and the beautiful sky and the birds. It just fills me up, and it just changes my mindset to where I can feel peace. I can feel joy and just take in the moment. And
Love it.
then the next thing is my spirit. So I do meditation and I read scripture, or I just love to connect with the universe or God or whatever you believe in. Like, I just feel like that is a really important thing to receive guidance and receive that peace, receive confirmation of who I am as a person, and to just feel that support for my day, to feel like I can move forward.
That's so
So that's
important.
been huge.
Now, about how long does that take? Because that seems like a lot.
Well, it depends on what I have time for. So I might have time for a 10-minute meditation. I could go for a walk for 20 minutes,
Mm.
and then I could read something for 10. So it doesn't have to take a lot of time. But the other thing that I do is no social media, no email, none of that in the morning. Like, I can turn on that stuff later on, after maybe 9 o'clock or so. So it's like a sacred time that I have to just have me, to connect and to feel centered. And that has been a huge thing. So um, moving my body is like non-negotiable. It's because I feel like we have all this stuck energy, we have all of these fears and whatnot, and just move our body and get that released is so important to get some movement going. So yeah.
That's really great. I mean, there are so many different ways, and I've heard of so many different morning routines that involve writing and movement and meditation. I love that the fact that you put the learning in there, because that just simulates a completely other part of the brain that
Yeah.
is more curious and more energizing.
Yeah.
And uh, I'll definitely highlight the no social media and the no computer. I mean, and phone. That I would think would be the most difficult thing to start. But I would imagine that once you get on that track, that becomes a non-negotiable as well.
Yeah. So I actually delete all of the apps that I normally would open the night before. And then I can put my phone in airplane mode. I download Facebook probably 2 or 3 times a day, honestly, because I'm like,
Really?
oh, I'm not using my time well, and I'll just delete it. Yeah, because
That's
I'm like, it's not serving me, right? And so I'll just let it go for right now. And so if it's not on my phone, it helps me.
great.
Some people will just use Facebook on their computer instead
Mhm.
of on their phone, and not even have it on their phone at all. So yeah,
Great tip. And as
yeah,
a mom before, if you can find a way to put all this stuff in your life, it gives hope to the rest of us.
yeah,
that,
yeah.
that
My
we
morning is huge. My husband's always like, shouldn't we be getting our kids up? I'm like, nope, this
no,
is
not yet.
my
Don't
time.
do the chaos. Don't do
So
the
the
chaos.
other thing that's really helped me is we have set a standard for ourselves that we don't watch movies until it's Friday or Saturday night. And what that does is it helps us to have a sort of structure and schedule that we go to bed on time.
Mhm.
And I think our sleep is really important, and that it makes it so that Fridays and Saturday nights are something we look forward to as a special thing.
Mhm.
It's something that we can enjoy together, and that it's a connection time. It's a ritual, so to speak.
Right.
So that's something to look forward to.
So what I'm hearing running through this entire thing is discipline. It seems like you figured out the key to living a more disciplined life in one that serves you, which I find super interesting. It's uh, discipline as a solution to fear. I don't know. You didn't frame it like that, but that's what I'm getting, is that you set some certain standards and you're
Right.
adhering to those, and that seems to have overcome a lot for you in your life, which is amazing. And so relating that back to fear, um, you're essentially saying that the mindset itself sets you up in a more positive way. Is that
Totally.
your
And so I really work on what it is I'm filling my mind with. So I'm really protective of what I take in. So I feel like proximity to what is around me is really important. So like I have certain books that I love. One is called The Choice. It's by Edith Egger, and
Mhm.
she was a Auschwitz survivor,
Oh,
and she is, it's an incredible book. If you haven't read this, it's amazing. But she talks about how overcoming challenges is a choice, and I feel like that is a message we need right now.
mm,
That you can be resilient and you can overcome things. And so I like to fill my mind up with these kinds of things, or like Loving What Is by Byron Katie, where you can reframe your belief systems to where you don't need to blame other people. You don't need to be angry about what's going on. You can just kind of have more acceptance. And so radical acceptance is a really big thing for me as well. Is
absolutely.
I think it's not easy. Like I still have certain times where I'm like, oh, I'm not accepting right now, I'm frustrated, or I'm angry. And recognizing those feelings, feeling them, I think is important. And then just releasing them, like just letting those things go, or looking at it a different way, a more positive way. How can I learn from this? What is this going to teach me? Or how can I move forward? How can I look at it a different way, to where maybe the person that's bothering me, maybe I'm not honoring myself, and that's why I'm bothered. This person isn't honoring me, right? And
Right.
so you can turn it around. So I really like to fill up my mind with positive things. So watching news media is not a priority for me.
No.
It just isn't. so I'm really careful about what it is that I'm putting into myself and my mind every
And
day.
you find that once you've set these standards for yourself, and I would imagine that took a little bit of experimentation, right? Once you set those standards, how was it difficult to stick with it, or is this something that's came naturally to you? Because I'm thinking about the people who would watch this, who, you know, I would say the majority of people do watch news media, do have their apps on their phone, probably don't get enough sleep, and it seems like you've gone to a different level there, which is awesome. Were you always like this, or did you have
Oh
a
no,
transition? How
no.
difficult
So
was that?
probably 4 years ago, I was totally miserable. I was in just a really bad spot, and I went to counseling because I was like, I don't know what to do with myself because I just didn't know who I was. I didn't take care of myself. I just let things happen. I felt like didn't have control over my children and parenting. I had a lot of negative beliefs about myself, of who I was. And so it's a process. It absolutely is a process, and figuring out what works. So my counselor, I was like, I'm having all these problems with my children. He's like, no, 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 no. You don't start there. You don't start with your kids and how to parent. You start with you, and you start with um, who is Julie, right? And trying to figure that out. And so he said, try things on. He said, what do you like to do? And I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know who I am. So he's like, well, just try stuff, pick it up, see how it feels. And if it feels good, do it. If not, don't do it. Like, and just try things. So one time I decided to go to a restaurant by myself and pay for a nice dinner. And it was like a light bulb turned on. I was like, this is possible. Like, people actually do this. And I don't know why it never occurred to me before, but treating myself kindly like a human being was really important to me. And so it was more of like a discovery thing. And so one of the things that I did was I gave myself permission to dream, and to through this process to look for, because he was like, well, what do you dream about? And I'm like, what? And he said, yeah, what do you dream about? And I'm like, well, I don't dream. And then later I was like, well, maybe I could. And so I started having all these dreams, and one of them was about teaching and teaching choir, and another one was about being in school. And so my counselor was like, strike when the iron's hot. And so I was like, okay. So I go to this university that I have a master's in this university already in recreation. And so I go there, and to the music department, and I talked to them, and it was like in October, and there was all these deadlines that happened that I just barely got in, and I just barely, right under the nose, like, oh, if it was been a week later, I wouldn't have been able to make it. And so come January, I was going to class when I hadn't been to school in, 15, 20 years. And so it was huge. It was a huge thing. It was like
Amazing.
planets shifted. I don't know. Like, I mean, my first day of class, I was like, whoa, this is really kind of crazy that I'm here. But it was a wonderful first semester. It just felt right. There was a lot of figuring out I had to do because I still have 4 kids at home, right?
Right.
So, so there's a lot of juggling. But I really wanted to be there. I really wanted to serve my community when I was finished. I have a church choir that I conduct, and I love them, and that really inspired me as well. And so there was a lot of fear going into it. Even just stepping out of the car, I'm in this parking lot, and I'm going into this building, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it just feels really big. But I go anyway, right? You do it anyway because you feel like you're on a pathway. And to have things all line up like that was quite miraculous. I feel
Right.
like I was in a special place. And that moment, I will always remember, because it was like nothing will ever be the same after this, right?
Yeah, it's you actually are touching on something that I talk about all the time, and that's an action mindset and just taking action. And once you think you don't even need to figure everything out. Once you think you've figured something out and you did something really important, was you just took immediate action and got yourself on that path.
Right.
Once
Yeah.
you're on that path, everything opens.
Right, exactly. And so another thing that happened was, as I was on this journey, I felt like I really want to move my body. That's something that I feel like would really serve me in this pathway. And so I looked at different gyms, and I found one that I really liked. And I talked to my husband about it, and he's like, "Well, I don't know if I want to do that." And I'm like, "Well, okay, I'll go on my own. It's fine." And so come that morning, I'm getting ready, and he's like, "Well, maybe I'll go too." I'm like, "Okay." So we've been going for like 3 or 4 years now.
Oh, wow.
And it happens that he's the one that's getting me up to go to the gym. He's the one that's getting me going because he's in a pattern now because I started something, and we kind of help each other. So it's been a wonderful thing
That's,
to be able
that,
to work out together.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm watching this and I see the success that you've had. Okay. What There came those series of moments where you could have just quit or you could have gone forward.
Mm.
And that's the thing that we all butt up against. And what is it, or what tools did you use, or what mindset did you have to keep going? Like, what was that? How did you frame that in your head? Because I'm sure it wasn't easy. It's anybody who's been through a big transformation, we all look to and say, well, yeah, it's good for them. But I have X, Y, and Z, and I've butted up against this, and I've failed multiple times at trying to change my life. So in those moments where you could have just said, forget it, this is too hard, what did you pull on in those moments that maybe somebody else can use?
So I feel like having a community is very important. So, like, my husband is my community for working out.
Mhm.
And right now we keep each other going at home, right? Because we can't go to the gym. So that's been super important to have somebody that you can count on. Another thing is I have an online group that I'm accountable to. When I produced my album, I told them my goals. I was like, this is what I want to do. And they're like, well, why aren't you doing it? And I'm like, well, like, what are you waiting for? And I was like, well, I don't know. Like, and he's like, the only person that you need to have permission to do something for is you. Like, you're the only one that can do that. And I was like, you're right. I'm the only one keeping me from doing this. And so I signed up to at a recording studio, and I went for it. But it wasn't until having that accountability and having that person say to me, you can do anything you want. Like, you're the only one stopping you. And that was huge for me. And then they're like, well, how is your album coming, and what's going on with that? And your goal was to be done at the end of October, and how's that going? And I'm like, well, it's taking a lot longer than I thought. So
It always does, right? Anything important takes longer than
yeah.
you.
Yeah, and that's okay. Like, it's a process, but it was such a huge learning experience, and it was just a wonderful experience I had to even produce it and to make this thing that was totally me. And was very personal. And these were songs that I had written in hard times, and they were really special to me. And to be able to share it was terrifying. And so my ego was saying, what are you doing? You can't do this. Like, this is
Right.
crazy. And so then I have my accountability people saying, yes, you can. I'm like, okay. And I go at it again, and I have it, I kept scheduling the recording studio until it was finished. And so I was able to get that out right before Christmas. So
Wow.
I was able to get that, get an album for my parents for a Christmas present, and they loved it.
Amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So it's something I'm really proud of.
You said something really cool, that that I've never heard before. So when you started talking about community, you said my husband is my community at home, and I've never heard that. Like, okay, when you frame community in a really unique and interesting way there, because we look at our spouses and we say, okay, that's my spouse, and then my community is out there.
Mm,
My community, like, it's easy to say I have a community online, or I have a community around me in town or at work, but you made that so small right there and very personal. Like, my husband's my community when we work out, and that's just a great takeaway, that we can find a sense of community with the people that we're sharing our lives with right in our own home. And I wanted to make sure I highlighted that, because I've never heard it framed that way. That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome.
yeah.
And I think that accountability is super important, in the fact that you were able to go online and find, and there are a million different groups out there for anything you're going to do.
Right.
And what I found, and I'm sure, like, we met in an online group ourselves, and
Right.
you sent me a link to your album, and I listened to the entire thing in one shot. I just put it up, and I couldn't stop listening to it. You have a beautiful voice,
Thank
and
you.
lyrically, I just felt it was really strong too. I just really enjoyed the entire thing. um, but the when I go into that community that we were part of, and I can see everybody is basically the same,
Mhm.
and we're all we're all in varying degrees or varying places on our path. And what I've told so many people, and this was told to me, is if you're 3 steps ahead of someone, or you've learned 3 different things that they haven't learned, it's your responsibility and to go back and teach them. And I love that you're doing that. I just love that you're doing that, which is why I want to talk to you today. One of the big reasons. Um, so yeah, we've just covered a lot in a very small time. And so, getting back to the self-care part. So we
Yeah.
talked about morning routine. What about nighttime? Do you have a specific thing that you do in the evenings to set that good sleep up, or to to set you up for the next
You
day?
know, I don't have, like, my husband, he does like evening stretches with a roller, which would be super awesome to have that wind down. Myself, everyone brushes their teeth, gets into pajamas, has hugs, and I try and connect with each of my kids, even my teenagers. I'll go in and talk to them for a little bit. And my daughter, who's 6, I'll usually read her a story. We have
Mhm.
to read Pokemon, books too. So, that has to be in there. But,
Yeah.
but, so that's sort of a wind down of just the mom wind down, I guess. But, we're usually in bed by 9:30 or 10
No, that's
most
great.
nights.
That's
So, yeah.
I live with a bunch of night owls here, so that's really hard. That's really hard. I have 3.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the
Weird.
other thing is my husband is awesome because he'll say good night. He'll go to bed. He'll be completely out, and I'm still kind of winding down everyone else to put him in bed. But he's really good about, I need my sleep. This is a priority for me, and so he's a lot better than I am that
That
way.
that is one of the number one things that so many people struggle with, is getting enough sleep. I mean, I do. I'm a night owl myself. It's not uncommon for me to be up at midnight, 1 o'clock, but I do a lot of writing at that time. So I find
Mm,
it's trying to figure out that balance of how do you maintain being a functional human being during the day, and giving your mind the space that it needs to do what's important to you, which in my case sometimes it's writing, or reflecting, or coming in here, and actually have friends all over the world. Sometimes you're talking at people in Australia who are on completely different time zone. So that's
mm.
super, super interesting, I think. So tell me a little bit more about the album. um the type of music, and where did it come from? Like, you said there were some pretty significant stories there. How would you
Yeah.
how would you describe your music?
So it's really inspirational for me. I felt inspired to write it, and as I was, um, I would even I did a YouTube channel of some of the songs as well, before I went into the recording studio. So it's sort of a more raw, recording of these songs. And that process was really significant to me. And just, I knew that this was something that needed to happen, and that it was important to me to get it out there. It was, so There Is Hope is the first song that I wrote. So I all of the songs on the album, they go in order of how they were written and how they kind of, and I can only do one at a time. That's just how it is. But There Is Hope was my first song, and it really came about because I needed it at the time when I was trying to figure out who I was and who I wanted to be. And so that's that one. The next one, Your Warrior on the Inside, was for a women's group that I was doing a fireside for them, and just so that they could see who they were. And it was, but as I was doing these songs, it really, I needed them for myself. I needed these messages. And so every time I would get discouraged, I'd be like, oh yeah, but this song reminds me that I need to have hope, and I need I need to be a warrior in this side, and I need to remember things that are important, that I'm an important person, and that I have a gift to share with the world. And so, and Under the Piano was about a friend in college, and we reconnected, and it was just a really important thing because during that time I could have gone into music in 1995, but I chose something else. But I shared my music with him, and so having that connection was important. So anyway, so all of these are just like my stories, but I feel like they are messages that could help somebody else as well.
That's incredible. The other thing that I'm getting from you is just great. Is that there's like an ease and a flow about you, and I think it's a great takeaway from this conversation from everyone. And the lesson that I'm getting from you is, when you have something that is on your heart, that is important, you've taken the time, and maybe it's just since this transition that you've made and all this learning, but you've taken the time to create some space between it and examine it and say, what is this and how important is it in my life? And when you've determined it's important, you just go for it and get it done. And it's really refreshing for me to see someone who just goes like, yep, this is important, this is a 1, this isn't important, that's a 0. It's like, and I think getting back to the fear thing, that's really important. That's really important for us to do at any time in our lives right now, is to do that self-reflection and to hold that space in between the things that we see as important and ourselves, and like to be able to judge that and say like, yes, that's a thing. And once it's a thing, create that discipline around it and just get it done.
Yeah, for sure. But I feel like you need to have that direction first. You need to know what it is. And so to have that clarity is really important. And that's why meditation is so vital and so important, because if you're not listening, if you're so busy, like I used to fill my life up with to-do lists, and that was like my lifeline. That was like my identity, is, oh, I get things done. But it felt so empty, because there was no one on the backside going, good job, like, yay, you got your to-do list done. But your family is fighting, or you're like, and you don't like your life, like, so it's not working. So examining that is really important, to say, okay, I need to stop right now and look at this, because I'm not happy. And I will still do that. Even my husband will say, you're not happy, what's going on? Thank goodness I have my accountability partner right in my home to help me out. And just, he doesn't always do that, but there are times where he notices that we just need to check in, and maybe having someone else to help us with that, knowing that they're on our team and that they want the best for us too is really important.
Mhm.
Whatever that is. I feel like even FaceTiming with my mom, I was coaching her through how to do FaceTime yesterday, and it was awesome to be able to have that, to give that advice or help or whatever. Like
Right.
it was great, but having that clarity is number one. And so that's why trying a lot of different things to figure out who you are, I feel like that's huge. And so self-care is top priority. At least for me, that's where I had to start.
Mm.
That's it. If I didn't start with self-care and looking at myself and saying, who am I? Then I wouldn't be in this place. I couldn't. So that is huge. So I have a self-care group that I run, and we have something called Win Wednesday, where
Mhm.
we share our self-care wins, because I feel like people need ideas of what is working for them. So they'll say I went for a walk, or I took a bath, or um, I called somebody, or somebody was doing a hypnotherapy online, or there's all these different ways that we can reconnect with ourselves. But I feel like that's where a lot of people, that's where I needed to start,
Right.
right? I needed to know who I was first and what I really wanted before I could go forward and take action. So getting quiet is really important. I feel like um it's really easy to get addicted to busy.
Mm.
I am one that can be addicted to that, because it's like, um but it doesn't serve us. It doesn't serve our better selves to
And
do
isn't it
that.
interesting that that's the way that the world validates people?
Yes.
By
Yes.
in prior to the coronavirus outbreak, and I'm going to be very curious to see how we evolve as people and humanity and in a culture going forward. I actually counted one day because I interact with a lot of people every day. How are you doing? Busy. That is the first thing people say. Busy. And that's like the first thing out of our minds, out of our mouths, is like, we're busy. And oh yeah, me too, we're all busy. Why? Doing what? And when
Yeah.
you
Do you get a medal for
uh,
being busy? Like,
I actually started doing this because I would say it's an experiment, and I would say, how are you doing? They say busy. How are you doing? I'm like, no, I don't have much going on. I'm just kind of hanging out. And when you try that, I would actually suggest that the next time somebody says that they're busy, how are you? And the automatic response is, yeah, I'm busy too. And you say, yeah, no, there's plenty of time on my hands these days. Things are pretty good. They look for the joke. They look for you to go, oh my, yeah, no, I'm actually busy. And when you don't, it creates this really interesting space in between.
anxiety.
And I go like, well, what happened? Like, why are you like this? Like, why? And I just started doing that as an experiment, just to see the reactions, and it's been pretty funny, actually.
Yeah.
But getting to that unbusy space, but busy with the right things. That's the thing.
Right. Right.
Busy doesn't not busy doesn't mean not active.
Yeah. Like, you have to have some boundaries around your time.
Right.
And that is something that I really had to learn a lot, especially when I first started, because there was a lot that I had to drop. There was a lot that I had to say, you know what, I can't do that.
Mm.
My husband had to do groceries, instead, or he had to start the laundry, or he had to start dinner because I wasn't home from class yet. We had to juggle where our kids would go. So I really had to be okay with daycare, where I wasn't before, and so there was a lot of shifting of mindset of how I was used to doing things and letting things go, and just saying, you know what, I can't do that right now. And so it became that my kids appreciated me more because I wasn't around as much. And that is
That's
that is a
interesting.
mindset thing,
Yeah.
but when I came home, mommy, and it was
Right.
like, hooray. Like I never got this before because I was around all the time, and it was,
Right.
my kids were happy to see dad or something, like, so it became a huge shift to be okay with not being there, right? And the other thing it taught them how to depend on themselves,
Mhm.
because they had to get themselves ready for school. They had to figure out their assignments. I mean, I am hands off on my 16-year-old and my 14-year-old, hands off on school. Like
Mhm.
that's kind of just something we've had to learn, is like I can't be the helicopter parent like I used to be,
Right.
which
Right.
actually has given me such like peace and freedom to know that I don't have to worry about that, because they know
Right.
it's on them to
Right.
figure this
You're
out.
either going to succeed or not.
Right, right. And so my
And
son, who's 11, he gets on the computer and he just goes. I don't have to remind him. It's something that he just does on his own, because I don't know, he's unique, I guess. I don't know.
sometimes you have to let your kids fail too, and that's the hardest thing.
Right.
Letting your kids fail, and we go through the same thing here, and there's only so much you can do. There's a point in time where your kids get older that you say, like, listen, I don't have to teach you how to eat anymore or dress yourself anymore. I have transitioned more into your coach. I
Hmm.
am a coach that loves you deeply, more deeply than anybody will ever love you. So I can only give you some guidance, but the rest is on you. And if you fail, you
Right,
failed. You're gonna have to learn
right.
from
Yes.
it. So you coach others to go through kind of like the life transformation and learn the things that you've learned. Tell me a little bit about that to finish up.
Well, I really focus on, again, the self-care. I feel like morning routine is a lifeline. So I am sure my clients are doing that at first, so that they are really listening. Um, I have one gal that she is just on fire, that she already knew what she wanted to do before I got there. And
Really?
so I'm just the cheerleader. I'm just like making sure that I'm the accountability for her to go after what she wants. And so we go through certain issues that she might be having. We use Mel Robbins' 5 4 3 2 1 method to overcome procrastination, right? So that you can overcome certain things that are important. But those are some of the things that we do, and it's been amazing. I My favorite thing is to see people light up when they know what it is they want to do and they
Right.
start talking about it. I'm just like, I'm so excited. I'm like, I can't wait to see this come to life. Like, I'm just thrilled to be a part of it and to watch this unfolding, right? It's just so fun for me.
That's,
So I love coaching. Yeah.
so in the description below, we'll put the links to your music and to some of your coaching stuff in your group. I'd love to include a link to your group if anybody's interested in that.
Yeah. And I also have a self-care course, a 6-week self-care course. So yeah. So
Yeah.
I've got that as well. So yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I've loved this.
I learned so much. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Yes, me too. Thank you.
Thanks for spending the time with us today. This is amazing.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You too.
Whoops. And stop recording.